Okay, I'm starting now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for Enfield Council to discuss the proposal for a quieter neighbourhood in the Bowes East area. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes to see if more people join before we start, and then I'll take you through how this evening is going to run. Okay, I think we'll make a start. So good evening. My name is Louise Bradley. I'm a director for a company called ECF, and we've been brought in to help facilitate this engagement process for the quieter neighbourhoods in the Bowes East area. So thank you very much for giving up your Monday evening to come and have this discussion with us. I'm going to run you through some housekeeping and how the session will work. And following that, I'll pass you over to Sarah, who will take you through the Journeys and Places programme and give you an overview of this particular project and why this area has been chosen. She'll then pass you to Liz, who will talk you through the communications around this, so how it's been advertised and how people can get involved and feedback. And then back to Sarah to take you through the next steps, and then over to you to ask your questions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of how this evening will work, we'll be posting questions through the Q&A tool. So there's a Q&A icon at the top of your screen. If you click on that, that will open a dialog box for you. You can type your question in there, and then the panelists will answer those questions verbally. We ask that you ask your questions following the presentation. We will use those questions to help inform the FAQs, which are already live on the Let's Talk Enfield website. And if you have a comment rather than a question this evening, you can also use the Q&A tool to type those comments. We just ask that they're typed separately, and that will be fed into all the engagement data that we have. You can also email your comments through, and Liz will give you an email address as part of this presentation. Just to let you know that the webinar is being recorded and will be published on the website tomorrow. And you can continue to share your ideas, your issues and your comments using the Places tool, the online map, which is on the letstalk.enfield.gov.uk Bowes East QN domain that you can see there. The engagement period closes on this Sunday, on the 8th of October. If you've not been able to write down that domain, don't worry, Liz will post it again within her part of the presentation, and we'll post a QR code as well so that you can scan the screen to make note of that domain. I'm now going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves before Sarah runs through the presentation. So Ryan, if you could introduce yourself first, please.
Hi, I'm Ryan Hicks. I'm a project manager in the Journeys and Places team, and we'll be helping out with the quieter neighborhood schemes.
Great, and Mikey?
Hi everyone, I'm Mikey Christoforu, the Communications Officer for the Journeys and Places programme.
Great. Richard?
Hi, good evening everyone. My name's Richard Easton and I'm the Programme Director for the Journeys and Places programme.
And Liz?
Good evening everybody, my name's Liz Rhodes. I am the Communications and Engagement Lead for the Journeys and Places programme.
And Sarah?
Good evening, I'm Sarah Whitehouse. I'm the project manager for this Quieter Neighbourhood project and also leading on the neighbourhoods work stream within Journeys and Places.
Great. And Sarah will now take you through this evening's presentation.
Thank you very much, Louise. So I'd like to start by introducing the Journeys and Places program, which the scheme is a part of. The Journeys and Places program was previously called the Healthy Streets program, and it's underpinned by the Healthy Streets approach. The program was established for a variety of reasons displayed on the screen. We are in a climate emergency, and so providing options to change the way we travel contributes towards significant reductions in our greenhouse gas emissions. Poor air quality affects our health. By changing some journeys from private vehicle use, particularly for shorter journeys, to more sustainable modes, we can improve air quality and our health. Daily physical exercise is important, and many young people in Enfield are lacking in physical activity, which can lead to poor health and place extra pressure on the NHS. The Journeys and Places program helps people to increase their level of physical activity as part of their daily lives. Transport has an impact on social equity and inclusion. People who live in more deprived areas tend to be disproportionately affected by the impacts of congestion, access to transport, and poor health. Walking and cycling are low-cost modes of travel and can improve access to public transport, education, employment, and other opportunities within the borough. The Journeys and Places program also looks to address the fact that there has been a steady increase in motor vehicle use over the past 20 years, leading to more congestion on our roads, particularly on minor roads that were not designed to cope with these large volumes of vehicles. And lastly, whichever way you choose to travel, you should be safe on and near roads. So there are 4 main focus areas of the Journeys and Places program. The first here is delivering a walking and cycling network, enhancing town centres and the public realm, making neighbourhoods safer for all road users to walk, wheel and cycle, informing and inspiring active travel. So this brings us on to the project tonight, Quieter Neighbourhoods. So what is a quieter neighbourhood? A quieter neighbourhood forms part of a comprehensive approach to reduce the speeds and volumes of motor vehicles in neighbourhoods and create an attractive and safe environment for people to travel by active and sustainable modes such as walking, cycling and public transport. A quieter neighbourhood can include a range of features. A few are listed on the slide, but I'll talk through the rest of them later in the presentation. The objectives of a quieter neighbourhood are to create safer streets, enable more people to walk, wheel, cycle and access public transport, improve the health and amenity of the local environment, and improve the physical health of people living within the quieter neighbourhood. A quieter neighbourhood is being proposed in Bowes East, and we are in the early stages of the project, understanding issues and ideas from the community that will inform a proposed design. We refer to the area as Bowes East because it sits within the eastern part of the Bowes ward. So we've chosen Bowes East as one of the areas for a potential quieter neighbourhood because it has poor air quality compared with other areas in Enfield. There are poor health and deprivation indicators that could be improved with active travel. There are 2 schools within the area which could benefit from the quieter neighbourhood initiatives such as school streets, and there are limited areas of open space within which a quieter neighbourhood could improve or provide access to these existing open space areas. So the map you can see at the moment displays the area that we're proposing for the quieter neighbourhood. So it's the streets that are bound by the A406, Green Lanes, Melville Gardens and Berkshire Gardens. Throughout the development of the project, we will consider the impact of the proposed quieter neighbourhood on the protected characteristics mentioned on the screen. An equalities impact assessment will be produced, which considers how the proposed project will have a positive or negative impact on each of these characteristics. This will be updated as the design progresses. If the assessment finds negative impacts on any of these protected characteristics, then mitigating actions will be considered. An example from the Fox Lane quieter neighbourhood, which was previously implemented, was to amend the exemptions policy to provide exemptions for blue badge holders who live within the Quieter Neighbourhood area. Oh, sorry, jump through. As I said, we're currently in the very early stages of the project, and we're gathering issues and ideas to inform a concept design. Some design features that could be considered for this project can be seen here. The first of these are rain gardens, which can be seen on the left of the screen. Potential rain garden locations could be proposed to create green space and capture surface water, which then filters contaminants and reduces flooding. Rain gardens will be planted with a mix of grasses and wildflowers that are attractive to pollinators and night foraging insects. Next, we have pedestrian and cycle crossing facilities. These crossings could be constructed to enable a safe crossing for individuals walking, wheeling, and cycling. We've got wayfinding, which helps people navigate throughout their journey. There's school streets, which create pedestrian and cycle zones outside school during drop-off and pick-up times. Some cars are exempt from school streets, such as residents living within the school street zone, but general vehicles cannot drive through a school street during those specific times. There's also modal filters you can see on the screen, and people walking and cycling can pass through them, as well as emergency services and other exempt vehicles. However, general cars cannot pass through a filter. You can still access every street by car if there's a modal filter, but the route you take may change to avoid travelling through the filter. This is really useful in preventing rat running through neighbourhoods. I'll now hand over to Liz, who will discuss the communications and engagement.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. So many of you may have received a letter in the mail with information about tonight's webinar, but also had the link to the project page, which is the link that you can see here on the screen, as well as where the QR code there will direct you to. So we have been promoting the engagement opportunity in a number of ways, but the purpose really of this engagement opportunity is to hear from people about what your ideas are for the area that might be you could inform the future project, as well as hearing from you about any current issues that you face in the area that could be addressed through the project. So the main way that we're collecting those ideas and issues is through an online interactive map, and that's hosted on the project page, which I'm sure many of you have already visited and may have even contributed to the map already. So we've seen a lot of pins come through with people's ideas and issues. So thank you so much if you've already taken part in that. But that map will be open until this Sunday, the 8th of October. So there's still a bit of time if you'd like to share any other views. We've also, other than the letter that I've just mentioned, we promoted the engagement opportunity on the council's social media pages and the Journeys and Places social media pages. Obviously, we have tonight's webinar, and we've also held 2 drop-in sessions in the area on the 20th and the 30th of September. We engage quite regularly with stakeholders, including Transport for London and the emergency services. So we're in conversation with them quite regularly about these projects, and we'll continue to engage with them throughout the life of the project as well. And we'll be posting updates and any designs that come forward on the project page ahead of future phases of community engagement and statutory consultation on any draft traffic order that comes forward as well. Next slide, please. So this image here is a picture of the online interactive map. And this is where we've been collecting pins where people have shared their ideas for the area and current issues that they face in the area as well. So as I mentioned, that's open until this Sunday, the 8th of October. Next slide, please. In terms of other information that's on the project page, there's a range of things on there, and we'll be continuing to use this page as the hub of information throughout the life of the project. So it will host any proposed plan for the project. It has some frequently asked questions on there, which we'll be updating with the questions that come through on tonight's webinar as well. Key dates for the project. Any information on upcoming webinars and engagement opportunities will be posted on there as well. engagement and consultation surveys and activities like the interactive map that we're using at the moment, future notices of traffic orders, and we'll also be posting project updates there. And again, that QR code links you to that project page. I'm now handing back to Sarah, who's going to cover off on the key next steps.
Thank you, Liz. So the key next steps for the project are outlined on this slide. We're currently in the early engagement stage where we are just collecting ideas and issues from you and members of your community about the Bowes East area. Following the engagement, closing on the 8th of October, we will analyse the feedback provided. A report will be published summarising the feedback in the next couple of months. We will then use that feedback to help to prepare some designs. These designs will be shared with you in early 2024 for you to provide feedback on those proposed designs. The feedback on those designs will then also be reviewed to prepare a refined design that will also be consulted on, and this will be part of the statutory consultation. So as you can see, there are multiple stages throughout the design process where you can provide feedback and shape your neighbourhood. Implementation could commence in autumn 2024, subject to your feedback and funding. That concludes the formal element of the project, of the presentation. I'll now hand back to Louise.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so we'll now go through this evening's questions. Sarah, do you want to go on to the next slide with a map of the area so that people can see that when they're asking the questions? Great. And you'll also see that on there is a link again to the domain if you want to take that down so that you can engage with the Places tool. So our first question for the panel: how are you working with Haringey on this proposal, particularly to understand the impact of this scheme, especially displacement of traffic on nearby streets on the Haringey side of the border?
I could take this one. So yes, we're liaising with Haringey. And we're working with them as one of our sort of key stakeholders and partners to deliver this project. So we have already had some discussions with Haringey, and we will continue to meet with Haringey officers and councillors as the project progresses.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Since the North Circular's inclusion in the ULEZ, how have you monitored the change in air quality in the Bowes East area in the last month?
Okay, I can answer this one. So yeah, so in the last month, we haven't got specific data from the last month, but we will sort of, as the project progresses, we will continue to monitor the air quality, and that will obviously impact and influence the project decisions.
Thank you.
So if I can add as well, I don't know if you can hear me. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I think my connection doesn't seem very good. Yeah, but just to add, there's a permanent air quality monitoring station on the A406 just by Bowes Primary as well. So that takes constant data collection as well. So that's an important sort of reference point as well that we'll be able to continue to use.
Great, thank you, Richard. The next question: what about those people who cannot walk far and cycle?
So the project, and I guess the Quieter Neighbourhood, it's not, as a premise, it's not sort of saying that everyone must walk and cycle. It's trying to provide options so that there's the ability for the mode shift, but also, you know, with things like modal filters, so you can still access vehicles. You can still access all streets with your vehicle. It's just that the way that you access, so the road that you go down potentially to access your house via, if you are needing to use a car, is still accessible. It's just providing options so that we can try and encourage those who are able to consider a mode shift for sort of some or all of their journeys.
Thank you. Next question: what about the blue badge holders who live on the outskirts?
So I could take that one perhaps.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So again, at this stage, we don't know, what the design will look like for this area. So all we can really do is refer back to previous projects. So for previous projects, we've enabled blue badge holders who live within the area to access permits where we've used camera controlled sort of closure points. So essentially, they blue badge holders will have a permit to pass through those if they're within the quieter neighbourhood area in which they live. We have been reviewing some, exploring what additional exemptions we might be able to bring forward, and that work is ongoing, and is something that we want to share as these new projects develop as well. So there is the opportunity for further exemptions. With the previous schemes, it also applies to those blue badge holders who live on the boundary roads, but it doesn't apply to those that might live further afield. So that's the current situation, but that's one that's under review, as I say. And as we move forward with these new quieter neighbourhoods, it's possible that there may be further exemptions that might be possible, and that's something that we'll provide more information on as we move forward.
Yeah, and following on from that, there's a question that asks, what hours will the modal filters operate? Will they be based on a similar sort of basis as the LTNs in Haringey? So of course you're still very much at the proposal stage, but if you could just add a little bit more to that, please.
Yeah. So I mean, at the moment, we don't know whether we're going to be using these closure points. They are one of the things, one of the options that is open to us, and one of the things that we'll look at as we move through the design process. So I don't think we should assume that they will play a part, but they may well play a part. And then if they do, then the hours that they operate is again something that's sort of part of that, part of that discussion. So we've got some previous ones where they operate 24/7, but it's possible to to operate those on a range of different times. So that isn't known at this stage, and that's something that we would that type of information, when we're at the stage where we've reviewed all the feedback from this early phase of engagement and we're developing some plans. Those plans, as Sarah said, will come back to engagement for further engagement. And at that point, any detail like that would be shared, so that we can have a discussion that's then focused on the specifics of a proposal, rather than at this stage where we're just really trying to learn more about your neighbourhood, generate views and opinions on issues and ideas to help inform that design. Thank you.
Following on from informing that design, there's a question that asks whether it will be legal to ride electric scooters in these areas. Do you want to cover that off, Sarah?
Yes. So, I mean, as Richard's mentioned, we at the moment we are in the very early stages. We don't have a sort of a design that we're sharing, and so once we're sort of looking through what the proposals are, that will influence what vehicles will be allowed to pass through whatever interventions are put in place. So, at this stage, we wouldn't be able to comment on whether electric scooters are able to pass through, because we're not aware of what the interventions are that will be in place.
I can add a little bit more, though, in terms of the wider sort of London policy at the moment. So at the moment there's an electric an e-scooter trial that's happening in London, and various boroughs are part of that. Enfield isn't at the moment. So those e-scooters can operate as part of that trial. There's still a review, I think, of legislation that's looking at the use of private e-scooters. At the moment, private e-scooters are not sort of cleared for use on the public highway by the Department for Transport, so they shouldn't be used more generally across London. It's only those e-scooters that are part of the formal trial that have been given approval to operate. But that's changing, or we expect more legislation to come out on that, amongst other things, in the future. So we'll continue to review that as we develop our own design ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And here's one for Liz. Are there any more drop-in sessions planned? And can you explain why the venues for the drop-in sessions were, how they were determined?
Sure. We don't have any more drop-in sessions planned in this phase of engagement, but as we move into future phases of engagement early next year and down the track, we will definitely be having more community drop-in sessions, webinars, and potentially other opportunities to speak with the project team as well. But that will be worked out a bit closer to the time, and residents will be informed by letter, but also please stay in touch with the project, but via the project page where you can sign up for updates as well. In terms of venues for the drop-in session, so we did consider a number of venues in the local area. It was down to what we deemed to be most appropriate, as well as availability of the venues. So yeah, if anybody has any suggestions for venues for future engagement activities and drop-in sessions, then we're very open to hearing those, and you can email me at journeysandplaces@enfield.gov.uk. But yeah, it was about how appropriate the space was for what we needed and availability.
Great, thank you, Liz. There's a question regarding, what will happen from all the engagement findings? Will these changes just be implemented, or actually how will the engagement findings help shape this proposal? Who would like to take that one on?
Yes, I'm happy to take this one. So yeah, as you sort of saw in one of the previous slides that talked about all the next steps, there are quite a lot of stages of engagement throughout the design life cycle. At the moment, we're in this early engagement stage, and we've got a whole report that will be published as well, which will go through all the sort of key themes that we're receiving from the engagement, and those will really be shaping what the designs look like. And then when we have some designs from those to prepare and to show you, then again we'll do some more engagement, and we'll again have a thorough review of them, and there'll be a report produced which will be publicly available to see the outcomes of the engagement. So it is very much informed by the community's ideas and the community's issues. So it's not a case that we're just going to go and implement something straight away. We are getting all of your feedback, and those are very much informing the potential designs. Thanks,
Sarah. And then our next question is again around monitoring air quality in the Bowes East streets. The question is, how did you establish the air quality is worse than in other areas of Enfield? I think Ryan, you can answer that one.
Yep, I could take that. Yeah, so for this area, the data was obtained from the London Atmospheric Emission Inventory and was calculated based on the ground level concentration. And then this was what is used to determine this is the average annual mean. And so we get those values and then compare that with the borough average.
Thanks, Ryan. The next question is asking how much is this project costing in total? And I think we should add to that, how is it being funded?
The current funding for the project at the moment is through Transport for London funding. We're also investigating some Section 106 funding opportunities, which is basically when there's developments in the area, and as a mitigation for example, if there's new apartments, and then to sort of offset the fact that there's more people within the area, there might be a contribution that's required from the developer towards transport infrastructure. So the current funding is through those two avenues. And in terms of how much the project is costing, it's obviously dependent on what the design outcomes end up being. So we will obviously be looking at some concept designs and costing them up, and then making decisions from there as to where we progress with the project and what gets implemented.
Thanks, Sarah. The other question is, what measurements have you taken to look at the congestion in residential streets?
I could do that one.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've had some traffic traffic studies done in this area that included some automatic traffic counts, some origin and destination surveys, queue lengths, and turning counts, and we'll progress that, or throughout the design we'll kind of look at those again, and after any implementation it'll be monitored to see what those outcomes are.
And
Thanks. And just following on from that, there was another question. Oh, go on, Sarah.
I was just going to add also that that's sort of only one element as well of a quieter neighbourhood. So as we said, there's quite a few different things in the objectives for quieter neighbourhoods, and well, yes, part of it is trying to sort of make it safer in terms of having less volume of vehicles on the road. We are also looking at things like improving air quality, access to open space, and as I said, making roads safer for people and providing people with options. So yes, we are actively looking at the congestion within the Bowes East area, but that is only one element of a quieter neighbourhood.
I think then leading on from that answer, Sarah, is that what's the difference then between a quieter neighbourhood compared to an LTN like has been introduced in Haringey?
Yeah, so the LTNs, they're looking at basically reducing the volume of vehicles within an area. So that's looking at basically putting in modal filters to essentially to stop rat running. And so while that is one aspect of a quieter neighbourhood, it's also a quieter neighbourhood is much broader. So as I said, there's things like could be putting in traffic calming, 20 mile per hour speed reductions, greening. There's a whole raft of things that are sort of encompassed by the quieter neighbourhood, whereas an LTN is sort of purely focused on sort of just reducing that rat running through modal filters.
Right, and so will cycle parking be introduced as part of a quieter neighbourhood?
That's yes, cycle parking is definitely something that could be introduced, and I definitely encourage you on the interactive map we've got, if there are areas that you'd particularly like to see cycle parking, please put that on the interactive map as an idea. These things all help to shape the project.
Okay. If you've mentioned greening, so there was a question to ask if there's any scope for maintenance of weeds and rubbish in the area through this project.
The funding that we've got at the moment, it's more focused around sort of transport infrastructure. So I don't know, Richard, if you want to pick this up. I don't think that currently within the funding scope we've got is for sort of the maintenance. That's through a separate budget within the council.
Yeah. So I mean, within the scope of the project, we can introduce. There's potential for introducing additional greening in terms of street trees and potentially rain gardens and those kind of things. We are speaking with colleagues in other departments who are responsible for for the maintenance, to make sure that if we do that it's properly integrated into their maintenance program. If there's particular areas again where where residents feel there are issues with current unkept sort of greenery and things, then again you could drop the pin on the map and draw attention to those that way.
Great, thank you, Richard. And in terms of next steps, will you be sharing what people are saying about this project? How will that happen?
Yeah, I can take that one. So the online interactive map is where people can post pins, but you can read what other people are saying on that map as well. We'll also be collating all comments that we've received through the map, as well as what people have told us at the drop-in sessions, what we've received via email as well, into a summary report. And that report will be published and posted on the project page in the coming weeks after we close the engagement on Sunday. So please do have a read of that when we publish that.
And Liz, just following on from that, how are you engaging with schools in the area?
Sure. So we've been in contact with both schools in the area, and we are running some workshops with them, with young people who attend those schools. So they're actually happening this week. But they've been engaged in the project, and we've provided them information. But yeah, we are looking forward to hearing from some of the young people who attend those schools.
Yeah, and we've also, you've surveyed parents outside of the school gates as well, haven't you, in addition to speaking to the pupils?
Yes. So we spoke with parents, students, and people who were there at the pickup times at the school gates to hear what their ideas were, and again, what issues they face in the area to inform the project.
Great, thank you. What open spaces do you envisage that people, local people, will be able to access as part of this proposal? Who'd like to take that one?
I can talk a little bit to that one.
Yeah,
so
please,
I think
Richard.
I think what we're trying to do here is to build a network to enable walking and cycling, so that people, if people are living in an area that has less sort of green space, that they can safely access other parks and things that are in the vicinity. So it's really but unless we can join up that network and enable people to get from A to B, then that's not going to be possible. So the borough's got, as we all know, lots of really pleasant green spaces located across the borough, and we want to make sure there's access to all of those. That's why those green spaces are really a key part of our connecting to them as part of the development of our walking and cycling network.
Thank you, Richard. Please keep posting your questions, because we do still have some more time for any further questions. Perhaps, Sarah, you could explain how school streets work, as we've touched on schools, while we're waiting to see if any more questions come through.
Yes, happy to do that. So yeah, basically a school street, it's essentially a zone really outside the school, and it's generally about half an hour during drop-off time and half an hour to maybe 45 minutes during pickup time. And during that period, the zone outside the school can only be accessed by walking, cycling, or people who have an exemption, which is generally residents that live within that zone area. And so essentially it then means that for children who are accessing their school gates, they've got much better air quality outside their school. They feel a lot safer if they are wanting to walk to school, or cycle to school, or scoot. It's a lot safer for them to do so, as they're not sort of dealing with a lot of cars, particularly pulling in and out all the time, as well as you've got people dropping off children. So that's essentially the premise of a school street.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And there's a question around rat running. Why is there the assumption that people driving to work is considered rat running? Richard, could you take that question, please?
Yeah. So what we're looking to do with these projects, in principle, is to stop small residential roads being used as sort of cut throughs, if you like, to get from one destination to another, when we feel that it's more appropriate that kind of traffic that's not originating and it's not stopping within a small residential street, then it shouldn't necessarily be passing through there, and it should really be on the primary road network, those bigger roads that are designed to carry motor traffic. And that was the way that it really used to be. And what we've seen with the advent of sat navs and and other sort of navigational equipment in vehicles is that the map is trying to identify perhaps what the quickest route is from A to B, which is now seeing a bigger increase in lots of motor vehicles on small residential roads that are not really designed to carry that volume of traffic. So it's perfectly fine, understandable and acceptable that some people may choose to travel to work by car. We just feel that the routes that they should take into account the communities where people are living, potentially communities where lots of people but maybe not even owning cars themselves, and that those roads, those small residential streets, shouldn't then be dominated by private motor vehicles. So yeah, hopefully that provides a little bit of context to that.
Thank you. And earlier, Sarah answered a question about how Enfield is working with Haringey, but a further question has come in around that. In terms of working with Haringey, how are you exploring ways to manage the impacts of the displaced traffic on nearby Haringey residential streets? If Sarah, if you could answer that question, please.
Yes. So as I said, we're liaising directly with Haringey as part of this project, with both the officers from Haringey and also with the councillors from Haringey as well. At the moment, we don't have concept designs. We are trying to get the issues and ideas, but we will, as part of the project, we'll be monitoring investigating, I guess, the impacts of traffic on any designs that are proposed. And we will then again be working with Haringey once we have those as well. So throughout the whole design process, we will be liaising closely with our key stakeholders, which are Haringey.
Great, thank you. And I think we're on our final question. In terms of any measures that you're proposing, how are you going to reduce the traffic and pollution on green lanes?
Yes, so we, as mentioned, oh, yeah, you go for it, Richard.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that we'll be monitoring traffic on green lanes. So I think, following on from what I've said before, I think there can be some concerns about, what we would refer to as reassignment of motor traffic onto the sort of primary road network. But we've got to understand what that level of impact and that level of reassignment, is to those roads and how those roads are continuing to function, particularly a road like Green Lanes, which is an important, important bus corridor. And looking at bus journey times will be a key part, and has been in the past and will be in the future, a key part of monitoring and assessing schemes. There are other sort of complementary measures that we can look at. For example, increasing the use of bus lanes to enable buses to continue to make those journeys. So we don't know. We've done some monitoring from the previous projects of impacts on that primary road network, and we've obviously got to be conscious and cognizant of as and when we deliver more projects, what's the cumulative impact of that. So that's something that we've got duty to understand and to monitor and to do some assessment on that. And we would do that with this project in the way that we've done it with others.
And Richard, while we're talking about green lanes, the questions come through to say, are you monitoring the air quality on the left-hand perimeter of green lanes?
So I think I don't think we've got air quality monitoring out at the moment, but I think as part of as we are looking at the way that we'll monitor air quality for these projects and how that might be different to how we've monitored it previously for other projects. So we will be looking at some form of air quality monitoring, and we'll, of course, before we do anything, which I think, as we've said before, is some time away, we'd want to collect some sort of baseline data for that as well. So all of that's to come. I think with this project, like with others, we would publish a monitoring, our monitoring plan. So we would set out, exactly how we'll be measuring all these various impacts, and that can be reviewed. But that's we're at the very, very early stages here, about, collecting ideas and issues, helping understand more about your neighbourhood so that we can, really inform that design making process.
Great, thank you. And I think just one final question is about, how these schemes can sometimes push traffic into main roads, which can also have then potential impacts for local residents. Just wondered if you could talk through how that can work, and how and potential impacts of the scheme, how you mitigate those types of situations happening.
Well, I think I've covered that really in the last point about sort of monitoring that and understanding what that impact is, both for general traffic that's moving through, but also for traffic, for people in motor vehicles who are trying to get back to their home, and that's something that we can, once we've got a specific design proposal, we can start to talk through, future events, what people feel the impacts of that, the impacts of a particular design might be. We're not at that point yet. We want to understand what do people living in this neighbourhood and the surrounding area, what are your views about what some of the issues are? What are your ideas about that you can inform us about of how you might want to take things forward in terms of making this area a better place to live for you and your families for now and of course for for future generations. So let us have your ideas, let us have your issues, and then we can feed those into the design making process. Once we've got something specific, we'll come back to you, and then we can start to have further conversations about the potential impacts of those or any concerns or issues that people have got on that.
That's great. Thank you, Richard. And I think that's a good place to conclude, as we don't have any more questions this evening. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. Just to say, obviously, the recording from this webinar will be published on the website, and you can see the domain name there. It's letstalk.enfield.gov.uk/Bowes East QN. And we will also be posting the findings from this engagement period on the website as well. So you have until Sunday to keep posting your comments, issues and ideas on the Places tool. And thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.